Are these reports just a waste of time?
I wouldn't say they're a waste of time by any means, because speaking from my own experience, when I opened the report into Telford grooming gangs, I felt like the stories of thousands of girls, what girls like myself had been saying in areas like Telford for years upon years, decades upon decades, was finally laid to bear, as though everything that we had shared and we had been ignored and silenced for was finally being proven to be true. I mean, the former Chief Superintendent of West Mercia Police said that the claims that up to 1,000 girls had been abused, had been victims of grooming gangs in Telford, was made up on the back of a fag packet, and that the claims were ridiculously sensationalised, when in reality, last week's report laid bare that everything that girls have been saying on the ground for years, that they have been raped, exploited, groomed, even murdered by predominantly Pakistani men. These are children being groomed by adult men. The media, local councils, police officers, social services have turned a blind eye for decades. It was finally proven that none of these claims were sensationalised. And so I think, while unfortunately what we're seeing is a slew of reports that could be copy and pasted, the same recommendations, the same pledges that, lessons have been learned, that these are crimes of the past. While that is very true, and the sort of reception that we're receiving from reports like Telford's, it's not as immediate and absolute, and there's not anywhere near as much responsibility being taken by those that oversaw these failings. I think that I can't undermine just how important it is to victims and survivors.
It's interesting to me, though, that it takes years for these reports to come out, and by then a lot of these guys have been convicted, and only a small number have been convicted, are out on the streets walking around the old neighbourhood again. West Bromwich, which is basically just a hop and a skip from Telford, a guy there, he raped two 15-year-old girls. One of them he nearly drove to suicide. He got, I think it was 44 months, which means he's going to be out strolling around in 2 years, and they'll be, whatever they are, 17, and maybe still appealing to him.
I think that police, local councils and social services treat the perpetrators of these crimes, treat the paedophiles and the predators with more care and consideration than they do the victims. It's victims that are constantly brushed aside, criminalised, told to shut up for the sake of diversity, while those that raped, groomed, abused, even murdered girls are allowed, like you said, to walk the streets, or told that they aren't going to be deported because of their human rights. They didn't care about the human rights of the girls that they abused, so why are they allowed to cry human rights when facing deportation?
That's literally true, that you were told to shut up and lie back and think of diversity, to modify the alleged apocryphal advice of Queen Victoria, a Labour MP, actually, that diversity trumps your body, your right not to be raped, your right not to be assaulted.
I think that one of the reasons that CSE, child sex crimes, grooming, all of these horrific crimes against children are allowed to continue is because the victims are deemed not newsworthy and not worthy of support and help and worthy of saving. I mean, we see girls being branded white slags, prostitutes, child prostitutes. By the way, there is no such thing as a child prostitute, and I don't know how many times I have to say this, but a child cannot be a prostitute. Children can't consent. No child is able to consent to sexual intercourse or sexual activity with an adult. It's black and white in the law. So why do the police not know their own legal system well enough to protect children?
That's the sickness of West Mercia. They're so disconnected from the people they're meant to be protecting, that they think a 6-year-old, a 9-year-old, a 12-year-old is actually capable of deciding, oh, I'm going to make a life for myself as a child prostitute. Have you had any more trouble have you actually heard from that ghastly Chief Constable, Pippa Mills? Remember her name, because if necessary, we're going to, she operates out of some stately home in Worcestershire, I think. That's the headquarters.
Oh, wow, wonderful. I wonder if she's ever been to Sutton Hill, Woodside, Wellington, or any of the areas where girls would be being systematically raped and abused.